evening, viewers, and welcome to the Art with World. I am your host, ARSHAD WAHEED. There have been different views about functions or purpose of literature. Some people view it as art for art's sake, and some other think art for social justice and other related issues. And still others think that art is, or literature is for exploring human condition in certain historical perspective. It has been a long debate and a lot of different views have emerged over course of time. Just to explain what's the purpose of literature. We're having this discussion with very esteemed guest with us today, Dr. Sheheryar Khan. Dr. Sheheryar Khan has done his PhD on Milan Kundera's fiction, and he has been teaching in government college, and he has also been visiting faculty members of Quaid-e-Azam University and Nimble University. Welcome to our show, Dr. Sheheryar.
Thank you, Dr.
How are you?
I am fine. Thanks for having me.
Well, who else I could have, because I know your interest in philosophy, psychology, history and literature, and so you are the best person to talk on this issue.
Thanks.
And just to start our discussion, I would like to hear your views about what's the function of literature and how do you view it in terms of changing human society.
Dr. Literature, of course, it has many functions to perform, or it has many different aspects or perspectives throughout the history. We see that how literature, it has not only expressed human condition, but it has also been used for certain, for example, ideologies, for certain not only to construct a particular view about society or particular worldview about the society or different kind of things, but it has also been a very powerful tool in the hands of social and power structures. And which is of course our topic for today's debate. But literature, it has been interpreted at the individual level as well, at the aesthetic level, at the political level, at the philosophical level. From the very beginning, if we let's suppose if we start from the Greeks, we find that for Greeks, it was a religious practice as well. Their tragedy, their epic, it was a form of expression of their religious beliefs as well. In fact, their literature is also a function or an expression of their religious mythology. Tragedy, it is believed that it arose out of their rituals, religious rituals. But later on, we also find that even in Greek culture, tragedy also has many other functions, like it has a social and most importantly, it has a political function as well. And throughout history, later on in the later civilizations as well, we find that politics has been one of the main concern or focus of different writers, different poets, and literature has been used by not only by the writers not only to construct a particular ideology, but it has also been used to deconstruct or question certain ideologies. So it has a very broader function to perform. If we
what we infer from your views is that there are certain maybe people or political actors who use literature as a tool to propagate their ideas.
Yes.
But what is a writer's role? I don't think that all writers propagate or push forward some political ideas. They are main concerned about many different ways to view human society, individuals, and they do not necessarily are tool to push forward certain ideas.
Yes, that's true as well. Many writings, if we look at them, we will find that they are not explicitly political,
Mhm.
uh, but uh, literature is not just limited to uh, the writer or the author's point of view. In fact, the recent criticism, it says that the author or the writer is just a kind of medium through which a certain ideas are expressed, and later on it is up to the reader or up to the audience that how they perceive or how they interpret a particular work of literature. Having said that, there are many writers in the history of literature who were, you can say, who openly claimed or they put forward this idea that they have their literature, it has a certain political agenda. For example, G.B. Shah used to say that for art's sake alone, I would not write even a single word.
Uh-huh.
That is, that my plays, they are, they have a certain ideology, and I want to convey this ideology to the people. Same is the case with another 20th century writer like Bertolt Brecht, the German dramatist. His plays are openly Marxist. He was of the view that theatre has a social function to perform, and but then there are other writers as well who proclaimed that their literature, it does not have any kind of moral or political agenda. For example, Oscar Wilde comes to mind. He was openly an advocate of art for art's sake. Keats comes to mind, that who never had, he was of the view that his poetry, it does not have any political or any other kind of agenda. So there are writers who are openly political, or they wanted to propagate their political ideologies to the masses, and then there are writers who are not. But uh, again, it is up to the readers whether they find any political message in a work of literature or not. That is completely up to them.
Well, I can understand if you, as we have referred to Bertrand Shaw, and there have been different views about their work as well. I like personally both the writers, um, Mother Courage by Brecht and
Yes, yes.
Exception in the Rule, and Bernard Shaw's, of course, my um, different plays. But still, you cannot compare them as with to Maxim Gorky's mother. I mean, they have maintained a certain artistic
Yes.
kind of, you can say, independence. They have tried to explore questions. They have actually raised the questions instead of answering everything, in my opinion. But of course, what you are saying is, I agree with that. They were pure artists in many ways, because Brecht broke so many theatre traditions.
Yes, yes.
He brought audience and performers closer, and so they work. And there are many other examples, like Lorca was a very active Spanish writer, playwright in politics as well. But there are differences, like you may have political ideas,
Yes.
but when I would like to quote one of your favorite writers as well, Kundera, that politics or political struggle is used as is to set a stage in which writer independently explores different relationship between individuals and society. If he, in many others' view, if ideas keep on changing, ideologies keep on changing, so if one writer takes ideology as one only universal truth, all his art becomes subservient to that ideology. He becomes basically a technician who can write poems, who can craft stories, and then he will try to uh, push those ideas into that stories. We have very many examples like Krishan Chandra in Urdu literature. But at the same time, if we compare Krishan Chandra and Manto, Manto was not that much
Political,
political.
yes,
I mean, he was political, but his
not
writings were
explicitly. Yes.
his writings were total. When he used to write, he was totally independent of ideology. So that gives him more space to express himself. So don't you think if a writer just becomes a proponent of certain ideology, his art becomes subservient to that?
Yes, that's true. In art, it has its own dimensions and angles and aspects. If you, for example, just form an idea and then start to write a story or a poem on that idea, in that case, art or your, you can say, whatever your perspective is, that would become limited and dated as well, because that ideology, when it would die away, then after that your art would not be, would lose its interest or lose its audience for the future generations. And I personally believe that art and a perspective or ideology of a particular writer, it should come into being together as a, not that it should be, there should be a preformed ideology and art should become just an expression of it. It should be that both should have an immediate existence and they should come into being immediately or together simultaneously. Totally going for example, a preformed ideology, and we have many examples in history of literature, for example, Milton. Milton, in many ways, his poems, they have a kind of religious tilt, and because of that religious tilt, and also a Protestant, if we look at it, he also expresses a Protestant and anti-monarchic ideology which is present in his poems. If we look at his poetry and compare it, let's suppose, with Shakespeare, we find that Shakespeare has not become dated. The reason is that he does not express a preformed or preformulated ideology. While Milton's ideology, it is very much explicit. He openly expresses it in his poetry, and for because he was the child of his time, because in those times Protestantism was a very, you can say, very much the thing in the society, and one of the British kings was hanged because of that, and Cromwell came into power, and all these you can say political events, they are reflected in his poems. And he when you look at his art or his poems out of that particular age, for example, in today's perspective, then he does not seem to be much relevant. If we look, if we compare him with some of the other poets like Shakespeare or even some of the later poets like Romantics, you will find that most of them are relevant, even relevant today, but Milton is not. Why? Because of his very explicit and very open political and ideological stance. So, in my view, that when the writers or the poets, they should not try to express a preformed ideology. there can be, for example, influences, or there can be, of course, when one lives in a society, one is living in ideological structures, one is influenced by them, and when one sits and starts writing, one cannot resist being influenced by whatever is happening around us. But it does not mean that one should become a tool of a particular political or religious or any other ideology.
Yeah, that's great. And when you say that many, like Shakespeare, is still relevant, if you find Homer, he is also relevant even now.
Yes.
And it is also very clear that he has discussed so many political issues as well,
Yes.
so many issues of power as well, so many issues of struggle as well. And same is with Sophocles. He is still relevant, I think. Even Oedipus complex was coined
Yes.
because of his play.
Because of his play. Yes.
And Antigone, his play, I think it's a very clear example of how power struggle influences human values. What do you say about that?
Antigone is, you can say, one of the very first play one of the very first plays in the history of literature that is openly political. And it stages a conflict between the individual and the political. Antigone has one stance. She is, you can say, vying for her family. She wants her brother to give a decent burial. But according to the Greek laws, the laws of the gods, Creon, who is Antigone's uncle, and he is at present he is the ruler of Thebes. He believes that he has committed, you can say, mutiny, and he has betrayed his country, and therefore he should not be given a decent burial. Now, this is the conflict in which we see that the political power wants one thing, while the individual wants something completely opposite. And this is the conflict that drives that play. And we see that this conflict, it has emerged throughout ages in different works of literature. It is present in Shakespeare as well. It is present in later writers, in novelists, and of course in the 20th century it's I see its clear example in Milan Kundera as well, where the individual, he or she wants something else, but the state wants to, you can say, impose its own version on them. Like for example, in the joke we see that the protagonist, he wants to pursue his career as in academia, but he just writes one particular postcard which was a joke, and he was expelled from the party, he was expelled from the university. And in this way you can see that his perspective, which is an individual perspective, it directly comes into conflict with the power. Same is case with Thomas in the unbearable lightness of being, that he wants to just you can say practice his profession. He is a surgeon, but he just writes a letter in which he says that the politicians, they should they should be punished because or they should inflict a kind of punishment upon themselves, like Oedipus did, because of the horrors they did to the people of Czech Republic. And then what happens, that he is forced by the authorities not only to quit his profession, but at the end he becomes a window washer, and then he has to live in a rural area, all because of the political structures that which are forcing him to not only you can say submit to a particular ideology, but also to change his worldview as well. So this conflict, it is really very interesting, and how literature stages it, that is also very, you can say, intriguing if we look at literature from this perspective.
Well, very interesting. I would like to add, rather, I agree with you in many ways. Literature, be it fiction, poetry, it is about human beings.
Yes, yes.
And human beings, when they interact in a society, there is always a power struggle, struggle between proponents of different value systems, and human beings cannot be dissociated from them. So, even if we say or even we don't say, politics does come in literature. Even you have referred to Oscar Wilde. If we take his picture of Dorian Gray,
yes,
you can find a lot of references to class difference between aristocracy and common people. The guy who is murdered, and what is the value of his death. And now you have talked at length about Milan Kundera. He himself denies that his writings are political, but you cannot separate politics from
yes,
his
I
writings.
Agree. Yes.
That they are too political. But at the same time, there is a very subtle difference. They say that and that I tend to believe in that. They use a certain situation, historical situation, as a stage to describe story of different individuals who happen to exist in that particular time, and how that time affected them, how different social, economic, identity factors played with their lives, their future, their miseries, their pleasures. So, there's a very clear difference. The difference is, when an artist is writing, a writer, fiction writer, a poet is writing, he or she wants to see the world as they should try as it's happening. If of course, everyone has political ideas or apolitical ideas, if they want to say, but that is of course influencing the text they are writing. But at the same time, it's also a struggle of a writer how to explore human conditions rather than to give glib answers to every situation. So that's my point of view. Of course, any literature, if I find, like Brecht, you have just mentioned my favorite writer, Arthur Miller, my favorite writer. You cannot.
He's also very political.
He was banned by American McCarthyism policies, and he had to suffer because of that. And most of the writers have to suffer because authorities do not want to listen to what they want to say, and that is the example that artists can even betray any given ideology.
Yes.
Milan Kundera was first, he was a part of the party in his country, but then he left because he has independent thoughts. So literature cannot be fixed into any ideology. That's also one thing I want to share. If you want to comment on that, or we can just move on to other things. Please.
Literature, yes, I agree absolutely that literature cannot be just you can say boxed into a particular ideology, or it can not just be a container of any ideology. And literature should have that kind of nuances and ambivalences which help readers to see or explore existence as it is. if we look at the rich literature of the works that really outlasted their time and place and everything, if we look at them, we see that they have this ambivalence. There are many points of entry into the you can say in their narrative, in their ideologies. We can interpret them in more than one way, in different ways, and they, you can say, appeal to different cultures and different times from different in different ways. And this is this makes them everlasting or universal, if we can use this term, even though this this term has lost its what we can say its main gist or what meaning. But if we just say that there are some works that outlast their time, their place, then only those works which are which allow the readers to those points of entry.
So, Sheheryar, you just refer to Shakespeare and his political themes. Would you like to further explain what you mean? What kind of themes he had discussed in his
Shakespeare, as we have, as I have said earlier, that he is not explicitly political, or he does not have a political agenda. But of course, he lived in a time when political philosophies or political ideologies were changing. For example, in Renaissance, we see that Thomas Hobbes, he wrote that order or the political order is an extreme necessity. That is, he advocated this concept that even if a king is cruel or he is a tyrant, but even then it is the duty of the subjects to obey him, because in the absence of a government or in the absence of an order, the society would fall into a chaotic state. Now this idea, we find that this idea is present in many of Shakespeare's plays. The hero in Shakespearean tragedy, he because of some of his action, he disturbs the political order, and that order must be restored. And in the process of restoring that order, he not only is you can say his life, he lays down his life, but he also loses his position or status in the society. In Hamlet, we see that how Hamlet's desire for revenge, it creates a political instability in Denmark, and towards the end Hamlet dies, but the political order is restored when a Norwegian prince, Fortinbras, he takes charge of Norway. Same is the case with King Lear, same is the case with Macbeth. Every hero, every Shakespearean hero, he disturbs the political order, and then that order must be restored, even though at the cost of hero's life. This political you can say theme is also present in Shakespeare's history plays as well, where the heroes, they try to you can say, because of some of their actions, the political order is disturbed, and they try to restore that order. So we can say that even though Shakespeare does not sport a political ideology or a certain political ideology, but there is always an evidence of this need for a political order that must be there, and it must not be disturbed.
Okay, interesting. But still, I think that if you refer to Hamlet, there are many other themes in Hamlet which are
Yes,
more
of course.
important
Yes,
than
yes.
his political themes. Yeah, very true. Yours. I think more explicit political theme appears in George Orwell, his 1984 and
Yes, yes,
Animal
yes.
Farm.
I agree.
It's authority, how authority and different structures which are powerful, how they influence human lives, political systems, and even our privacies.
George Orwell, in many ways, he foresaw the future. That it is, when he wrote 1984, actually, we are living in that age now. This is the age of surveillance, and with the with social media, this has taken a completely new, you can say, dimension, that now everything is being recorded. The devices we use, they are recording even our voices. They are recording, you can say, they are doing it in the name of marketing and everything. But all our actions, all our you can say, whatever we type, whatever we say, whatever what kind of websites we visit, what kind of political views we have, everything is being recorded nowadays. And some years back, there was this scandal of Cambridge Analytica that really shook Facebook, that there was this firm that acquired data from of Facebook users in America, and that data was used to for political manipulation, that to change the public's views about political parties and all. So we see that even this concept that human beings are free and politically we are more informed now, or we can make an informed decision, a political decision, in the age of democracy as well. There is this control, there is this surveillance, there is this you can say manipulation of our ideas. So apparently we are very you can say we appear to be free, but actually we are not. So Orwell is again, he actually his 1984 is functional now in the society.
Yeah, even Animal Farm maybe.
Yes, yes.
We are all equals, but some are more equal than others.
Yes, yes.
There has been a very popular debate on literature and empire since many decades, I guess, and most of people, most of PhD scholars write their thesis on post-colonial debate and all that. And there has been a lot of issues which have been discussed in this discourse: ethnicity, race, nationalism, color, of course poverty and affluence. Do you think this debate is still very relevant, or countries have been liberated since last maybe 60, 70, 80 years, and still that debate is on? So what are the roots of this literature which deals with literature and empire? Any ideas?
Literature and empire, they as Edward Said has shown in his works, that it is very much the connection is very prominent if we look at different works of literature, especially which were written in the 17th and 18th century, and later on also in the 20th century. there are two, you can say there are two ways to look at such kind of literature. There are some works which are pro-empire, that it seems that those works were especially written to promote the ideology of the empire in the high age of Western imperialism, that is in the 17th and 18th century. Like Robinson Crusoe. Robinson Crusoe, it you can say openly promotes or propagates this idea that Western people, they can single-handedly change the structure of another society. For example, in Defoe's novel, we see that Robinson Crusoe is one white man, but he lives, he gets stranded on an island, and he changes the structure of that island single-handedly. And he teaches, there was a slave or native there too, whose name was Friday, and he teaches him English as well, and also teaches him about Christianity and its beliefs. So this was, you can say, a quite an open propagation of this imperialist ideology of mission civilization, that we are here to civilize these people, and the white men have the capacity to do that. Later on, there are some works as well that question this ideology, even though there is this charge on Conrad's Heart of Darkness that it is racist. H.B. he in one of his essays claimed that Conrad has racist agenda in this novel, but the novel has been interpreted as an anti-imperialist novel. It is in a way, you can say, the main character of Heart of Darkness, Kurtz. It is an anti-Robinson Crusoe figure. That is, he is not the, he is also like Robinson Crusoe, he goes to a native or a foreign land in Africa, and instead of changing the local population, the native population, he himself gets corrupted. He becomes, he gets involved in cannibalism and everything. And in this way, you can say that Conrad was showing that the realistic situation would be that the white man would not change the, you can say, the local population, but he would be the one who would get corrupted. And actually this happened. When we read about the history of Belgian imperialism in Congo, we see that how cruelly they treated the locals, how it was a history of torture, it was mutilation, everything, which whatever you can think of. And the same goes with all the other imperial empires as well, that even though they did it in the name of mission civilization, but when they actually went to those regions, they committed all kinds of atrocities there. Then there are other works as well that are written in response to these works. They mean the works which were written by the white writers, like in response to Jane Eyre, Jean Rhys, she wrote Wild Sargasso Sea, in which she made Bertha Mason as the main character, who was marginalized in Jane Eyre, who was presented as a mad woman in the attic in that novel. Now she is put at the center in Wild Sargasso Sea, and the story is told from her perspective. And there are many other examples as well. And now we come to the second part of the question, that whether this debate is still relevant or not. The debate is still relevant, even though it has taken a completely new aspect or dimension in the contemporary age. Now empires are not directly controlling the third world, the so-called third world, but they do so through other means. for example, through cultural imperialism, through neoliberal policies with the institutions like IMF and World Bank. This is, you can say, a remote kind of control which they exercise now, even though they are able to implement their agenda, but they are not directly involved in these regions.
Yeah.
So the debate should be given a twist now, that it should be looked upon from a different perspective.
Right. You have very rightly referred to Edward Said and Joseph Conrad. I have read Heart of the Darkness, and I just love that text.
Yes, it's a beautiful novel. Yes.
And I have also read the article written against Heart of Darkness.
Racism in Heart of Darkness.
Yeah,
yes.
but at the same time, I think it also depends on reader as well, and with what perspective you are reading. Because if Achebe wrote against Heart of Darkness, Edward Said is total in praise of Heart of Darkness.
Yes, yes.
And Edward Said himself is a very great proponent of anti-imperialist and anti-colonialism. Well, that's very fantastic debate and discussion. Can I just refer to some fiction and maybe poetry as well written in our part of the world, in subcontinent? We have seen Ghalib, we have seen Mir. Mir has written things happening in Delhi in that period, the disturbance in society. But at the same time, his greater poetry is about, which is not that much political at all.
Yes,
it's just expression of feelings and existential transcendence, and what a great poetry he has written. Ghalib has written in his prose about what was happening, but maybe his poetry
is not that much political. Yes.
No, in that sense, I mean,
yes,
it talks about so many other issues of universe. We find Faz and Jalib, who has written poetry which people can explain in very implicit or explicit political terms. Fiction, particularly Krishan Chandra, he has written very explicit writings which push forward some political themes. But at the same time, we can see political struggle and turmoil and disturbances in Aag Ka Darya by Kurtulan Haider, Udas Naslein by Abdullah Hussain, Nadar Log, and many other things. I mean, Urdu fiction is perhaps full of political writings or trying to interpret history. How would you analyze Faz's poetry and maybe in relation to him, Jalib's poetry as
well? Faz, as you know, that he believed in a particular ideology, and but he was an artist as well. And
he was an artist.
Yes.
He was an artist who had some political
ideas. Yes, you can say, put it in that way. Yeah. We can, this is actually his success, that he did not just became he did not just become a mouthpiece of a political ideology. He remained an artist. And even though his many of his poems, they have political, you can say, themes running through them, but even those political themes are expressed in a very artistic manner, and they can be interpreted in some other ways as well. This is his success. But this, I would say that this conflict between the individual and political, it is still there, that the poet on one hand has very personal emotions that he wants to explore, he wants to, you can say, stay close to his beloved, But then he says that there are other things that also are calling him, and he should pay attention to them as well. So in the middle of the poem, he gets you can say he leaves behind his personal side and opts for the political one, as you can see that in many of his poems, like Mujhse Pehli Si Mohabbat Meri Mehboob Na Maan or Do Ishq. In many of his poems this happens, that on one side he has the personal or the you can say very individual kind of emotions, but on the other hand there is the society must be saved too. And this is the conflict that drives many of his poems.
Isn't it very human to think like that?
Yes, of course.
Every
it is very human.
They love.
Yes.
And they also want a better system.
Better system, yes.
And they also experience different deprivations, injustices, and life is a mixture of all these things.
And conflict. I mean the conflict between the two. Yes.
Yeah. And when you say personal is political, and that's also quite a debate in literature, I think.
Yes, especially in the since the 1950s, it has been a very you can say hard kind of issue in literature, identity politics, because identity, especially after the empire, after many regions they got freedom, identity became an issue for the not only for the third world. It became an issue for the third world because when the empire they got freedom from the empire. Now the issue was that whether they should go for their original roots which were there before the empire, and how empire changed their or you can say engineered their identity in the time period when they were here, how it made them ambivalent, and whether they should completely reject this you can say manipulation or this change of identity by the empire, or whether they should go back to their roots. Many of the writers, they advocated this, that we should not write in English or in the language of the colonial masters, but we should go back to our local culture or local languages. Many of the African writers, they actually did that.
Cesar.
Yes. Yeah. Then the identity, it also became an issue in the first world as well, and many novels are written on that. That in the first world we see that identity, especially in form of gender, when feminism it introduced that a new concept of identity for women. Okay. And it is there are also sexual orientation and political or diaspora, that is also a new factor in you can say identity politics.
Okay. That's great. So many issues we have discussed, and I'm sure there's no simple answer to these questions. There are many layers and different ways to see that. But at least we have discussed some points, and many people would not agree with us. Some would agree, most of people may not agree. But thank you very much, Dr. Sheheryar, for this wonderful discussion. I thoroughly enjoyed, and listening to your ideas was a treat, in fact. And thank you very much for being with us this evening. And thank you, viewers, for watching us this evening. See you next Sunday, same time.